The roof, pun may be intended, was what this German company raised when it came to Porsches. Many, if not all their cars made over 600 horsepower, but that's not what makes them revered in the enthusiast community. Rather, it's the fact that their cars are so far evolved from regular Porsches to the point where they are Porsches in appearance only, for all their inner machinations and a lot of things on the outside were comprehensively reworked by RUF. Now, over the past few years, I began to notice that RUF cars have slowly been disappearing off the face of the racing game world and have started to be replaced with Porsches, which is odd since RUF appeared in a lot of racing video games throughout the 2000s, and it makes sense that they should continue appearing in video games alongside the Porsches. In fact, the most recent game I saw a RUF in was Forza Horizon 2, and that game had a Porsche DLC. It's kinda like the developers were trying to phase out RUF at that point, because they were absent on future Forza games. But why? Well, there's a reason for that, and explaining that reason to you involves a little bit of a history lesson, so buckle up. And before we begin, here's a little side note. The company's name is pronounced RUF, as in the things that stop rain from getting into houses and apartments, and not RUF. I admit, I used to pronounce it that way too. If you're wondering, the company is named after the founder, Alois RUF, and it's not an acronym, it's just stylized for branding purposes. Anyways, my name is Lassika from Seedros Cars, and without any further ado, let's talk about Porsche, RUF, and the video game industry. Our story begins in the late 1980s. RUF at the time was primarily known within niche car enthusiast circles and people that read car magazines, and the car that spearheaded their reputation within those circles was the RUF CTR Yellowbird, one of my personal favorite cars. With nearly 500 horsepower on tap and a 3.65 second 0 to 60 time and a top speed of 213 miles per hour, it was the fastest production car in the world when it came out in 1987. And the video that RUF made to promote the car and the company called Fascination on the Nürburgring, which I highly recommend you check out. I left a link in the description or check the info bar. Anyways, that video stirred a passion within all those who saw it, me included, and it's widely considered to be one of the first viral car videos. Yes, viral. Long before the concept of YouTube even existed, when the only way videos like this were shared either involved going to a friend's house to see it, or simply letting them borrow the tape if you had it, and crossing your fingers and hoping he would return it before next week. Nowadays, someone would just upload the video to YouTube and you just share the link with a friend. But considering the relative exclusivity of the VHS tape back then, just getting the opportunity to see it was a magical experience. That experience ignited a passion within many car enthusiasts who have seen it, a passion that remains to this day. Despite all of this, RUF was just a niche car company out of Germany and didn't quite have the widespread prestige factor of other exotic supercar marques, for example Lamborghini, Ferrari, and of course Porsche. This didn't sit well with the mainstream exotic car buying crowd at the time. This, however, was about to change by the year 2000, as Electronic Arts, the company responsible for developing and publishing the famous or infamous Need for Speed series of games, were about to release their latest title, Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. Before we continue, however, we need to understand the concept of licensing cars to video games. Getting your favorite car into a video game isn't as straightforward as one might be led to believe. In fact, it can turn out to be quite an arduous process. Car manufacturers don't let game developers put their cars in a video game for free. Unlike TV and movies where car companies pay the movie producers to put their latest and greatest car in the next Hollywood blockbuster, like Aston Martin for the 007/James Bond series or Lexus in Black Panther for a more recent example. Video games have it the other way around, and paying for the license is not cheap. There are also a lot of terms and conditions for using a car in a video game. You know, the stuff you just click accept without reading? Yeah, game developers have to read the full thing and follow it to a T, and car manufacturers will make sure that they do. If you're interested in this, there is a good article by FastCompany that briefly details the intricacies of the agreements between game devs and car companies that I have linked in the description below for your perusal. You're welcome. Anyways, almost every car company does this, and the reasons why vary widely between companies. Some of these reasons make sense and some of them seem ridiculous to the average person. Now, back to the main topic of this video. Being the fifth installment in the Need for Speed franchise, Porsche Unleashed is a far cry from the Need for Speed you know today. It focused more on the history and the heritage of Porsche cars and delivered a realistic handling and driving experience to the gamer, rather than focusing on the high-octane rush of illegal street racing like it does today. The game itself received mixed reviews upon release. However, it went on to change the landscape of the racing game industry as we know it, although indirectly. Behind the scenes, EA worked out a deal with Porsche that would allow them to gain long-term exclusive rights to the Porsche brand and cars for the next 16 years. In layman's terms, this meant that only EA racing games could legally have Porsche vehicles until the year 2016. 16 years. It's a little much, don't you think? Well, it's EA, the company lampooned all across the internet for being the harbinger of the ruination of the gaming industry. And yeah, they kinda screwed over everyone in the racing game industry in the beginning years of the 21st century. But all things considered, it was a pretty sweet deal for both Porsche and EA. But why? Because on the business side of things, it makes a lot of sense. If EA is the only game company that could use Porsche vehicles, a popular brand of sports cars mind you, people who want to drive a virtual Porsche had no choice but to buy Need for Speed or real racing to get their fix. Porsche also benefited by having awareness of their brand and cars becoming widespread, provided that the Need for Speed games proved to be a consistently popular and profitable franchise. However, do note that some developers were able to negotiate with Porsche and get a few cars in their games before 2016 under a sub-licensing deal. The most recent example I can think of is Turn 10 Studios and the Porsche DLCs for Forza Horizon 2 and Motorsport 6. However, if you were another game developer in the 2000s, tough luck. You won't be getting a Porsche in your digital Christmas stocking, and you couldn't boast a wide selection of cars in your game without the revered Porsches. So, what were the game dev companies to do? Well, remember when I said that RUF reworked their cars from the ground up? Let me elaborate. You see, RUF cars were built with Porsche chassis, either provided from the factory, called bodies in white, or from customer-owned Porsches, but all the other parts were produced or manufactured by RUF in-house. In the eyes of the German law, this meant that RUF was considered a standalone manufacturer rather than a tuning firm for Porsches, which turned out to be a blessing for game developers. So many of them went ahead and licensed their cars from RUF to work around the EA Porsche fiasco, and thus the Porsche that's not a Porsche reputation of RUF was born. Unfortunately, that reputation is what led to the disappearance of RUF in the collective gaming conscious, as in 2016, EA did not renew their agreement with Porsche, as Porsche felt that the monopolization of their brand in the gaming industry was undesirable, and they didn't like seeing that RUF was more widespread than their brand was. However, they are still on good terms with EA, and Porsche models still continue to appear in EA games to this day. However, a side effect of the end of the exclusivity agreement was that many game developers didn't see any need for RUF cars in their games as they had access to Porsches, so they subsequently started slowly phasing RUF cars out. Licensing can be expensive, like I mentioned before, and game developers probably saw it as wasteful to have Porsche and RUF cars in the same lineup, as they serve the same purpose of, well, being Porsches. And in the case of games like Forza and Need for Speed, where customization and performance upgrades are a core gameplay element, If you could upgrade your Porsche to look and perform like a RUF in the game, why buy a RUF in the first place? Now, we might see some RUF cars in one or two games like Assetto Corsa, but they may never become as widespread as they once were. And a whole generation of car enthusiasts may only see the German company as an obscure Porsche tuning firm, and its hallowed name will be back in the domain of niche enthusiast circles, back to the way it was in the 1980s, and the legend of the Yellowbird shall soar off into the sunset to its final resting place amongst the supercar legends in the history books. It is with sadness that we wave goodbye to an era where RUF's passion for building amazing cars flooded through the screens and speakers into our living rooms and into our hearts. We will miss you, RUF, and the hopes, dreams, and memories you have given us throughout your storied history in the video game industry will remain with us for the rest of our lives. Okay, it's not that bad, and I admit it might have gotten a little sappy at the end there, but I can't deny how I feel about the whole thing. As for RUF itself, they are alive and well and kicking. They are doing what they do best, creating true speed demons out of Porsches, like the CTR3 for instance. They've also dabbled in the electric vehicle space back in the 2000s with their RUF line of concept cars, and they've recently built a new version of the CTR Yellowbird, which is built completely in-house with nothing carried over from Porsche. It has an all-new carbon fiber chassis and it has many improvements over the original, so I don't think the legend of the Yellowbird is dead yet. RUF also helped develop the engine for the multi-million-dollar W Motors Lykan Hypersport, a flat 6 making about 780 horsepower that propels it to 60 miles per hour in a claimed 2.8 seconds. And the W Motors Lykan Hypersport is built in the country I currently live in. Anyways, as you can see, RUF seems to be welcoming the future with open arms while sticking to their roots, and their story in the auto industry will for sure, outlast their brief stint in the video game industry. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video and you want to see more, hit the thumbs up button and of course subscribe. If you have any suggestions for future content, or if you feel that something I said was inaccurate or incorrect, please feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. Cheers, and I hope you have a great week ahead of you.